G'day everyone, and welcome to the Ozcast. This is our second episode for 2016, and this will be our last episode before the new year. My name is Bodhi, and joining me, as always, and for our second episode is Paul Coletta
How's it going, everybody?
and Alexander Bray.
Hey guys.
All right, boys, let's get straight into it today. We did a bit of a long introduction last week, but we're going to jump right into it with our first topic today, and that is the Pokemon TCG news from around the world and Australia too. So the first thing on our agenda today is the Sun and Moon pre-releases have been confirmed for the last weekend of January, the 28th and the 29th of January. Are you guys excited?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, definitely. I love pre-release. Favorite time of the year.
With Sun and Moon coming up now, guys, as we are pretty much a month away now from the arrival of Sun and Moon, and about 3 weeks after that, it will be available in competitive play, just in time for the international. Is there something that you guys are specifically looking forward to with Sun and Moon? Like, what really jumps out at you when you think about it?
I think all the GX cards first of all. It's always interesting when we get a title set. So the new generation, we're up to Gen 7 now, so this is the first set for the new generation of Pokemon, and they always like to bring in either brand new mechanics or brand new types of cards. So we're obviously getting the GX ones now, and I think we already got to see, if anyone watched the VGC stream along with the London International, we got to see some of the interesting parts of play. I think these what are they called? Z moves?
Yeah,
the GX attacks, yeah. GX attacks, I think, are going to play a huge part in the game. And this is only the first set, and they're probably going to be more and more each corresponding set now for Sun and Moon. I think they'll just get more powerful or just more controlling. Because I think a lot of the ones that I was reading now, obviously the Lunala and Solgaleo, they're very powerful attacks, and they're all about energy acceleration or just knocking something out in one go, you know. I think it'll be interesting because the GX attacks I don't think would just be about power. I'll be interested if there's like controlling ones as well, you know, like not just like Quaking Punch, but something that's much more hindering to the opponent, you know, like preventing them from playing energy for like the next turn, you know. Could you imagine that? Could you imagine an attack where you just prevented your opponent from playing energy next turn? Like not just items, actual energy.
Yeah, well, I mean, we have Umbreon GX coming out, which isn't quite the exact same thing, but it strips the opponent's board of any 2 energy that they have on there, which is pretty big considering how we've been seeing cards like Crushing Hammer and Team Flagrant come into play a little bit more recently. Especially, I've been seeing them a bit more so the Team Flagrant in the Eviltal decks that have been so popular recently. I think the GX attacks are really going to be big momentum swings, whether it be something that your opponent has to react to, for example, Solgaleo GX's Soul Burst attack, GX attack, or if it's something that is a reactive attack, such as that Umbreon GX. I can't remember what its GX attack is called, but I know for a Dark and a Colorless, you
Night
choose.
Spear.
That's the non-GX
excuse me,
attack.
Dark Spear.
Dark Spear. Perfect. I kind of hope they translated to that, honestly. I think it would be a nice little throwback. But no, GX attacks, definitely attacks that are supposed to swing the momentum of the game. So, I mean, you can see all of them have their own little niche. For example, I mean, we could go through all of them now, but I think that'll be something to save for when the set itself actually drops in English. But yeah, they're meant to be big momentum swings. And it's obviously because you can only use one a game, regardless of what GX attack you use. They have to be really well timed. Otherwise, you could find yourself on the back foot if your opponent has the appropriate response. So I think there'll be cards that incite a lot of critical thinking. And also, the GX cards themselves are kind of reminiscent of the EX era of the 3rd generation, where they can evolve from other non-EX Pokemon. So, for example, you can see Umbreon and Espeon GX both evolve from a basic non-2 prize giver EV. But obviously, there's been a bit of a power creep in the HP and the attack damage. But the thing I like the most is that it looks like the set is trying to slow down the power creep, as weird as that might sound. It's sort of trying to tone it down for an eventual shift into a Sun and Moon on meta.
What I find really interesting about the GX Pokemon specifically is that they have such high hit points. A lot of them are stage 1, some of them are basics. The Umbreon and Espeon both have 200 HP. They're GXs that you can get on turn 1 because we are seeing a not direct reprint, but a half reprint of the Energy Evolution Eevee that was in Furious Fists, I believe. I think was the
Yeah,
I
second
think
that's
so.
one.
Yeah, so we're seeing a reprint of that. So being able to attach a Dark Energy, attach a Fairy Energy, attach a Psychic Energy on the first turn of the game to get you this 200 HP Pokemon, it's going to be very powerful. Obviously, Solgaleo and Lunala were the ones that were revealed very early, and we didn't find out until recently that, spoilers for the Pokemon Sun and Moon video game if you haven't played, but they are in fact stage 2s. So
That's correct.
they will evolve from Nebby and bigger Nebby, I believe.
the one that no one really bothers about because it's there for all of 2 seconds.
Yeah, I'm afraid I don't know the name. I only know it as
That's
Nebby.
Cosmog and
it's
Cosmoan.
that's right. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Well, well, there we go. Yeah, those would be the things that I'm excited about for Sun and Moon. Let's move on to some Australian local news now. We've got a couple of things to chat about in the Pokemon TCG news from around Australia. So the first thing on our list here is the addition of a pay-to-enter Pokemon trading card game online, or PTCGO for most of us listening. Will Ace Trainer Australia, that's us guys, is going to be hosting a pay-to-enter PTCGO league running fortnightly in Australia with a $2 entry fee. Would you guys, and I'm sure that the answer is going to be yes, as Ace Trainer members, would you guys join an event like this?
Yeah, I don't see why not. I mean, it's only $2. So I could get 2 large frozen cokes for it, which would be short term very satisfying, but this in the long term give me, I suppose, that little bit of play testing that I've always wanted.
I think largely depend on what time games are played. I think it's the same for a lot of other people. The advantage that PTCGO has, like you're saying, Bodhi, is if you do just random online play, so you just play against someone random against anywhere in the world, it doesn't matter because you're both matchmaking at the same time. You are both at that moment in time feel like playing the Pokemon trading card game, and you obviously can't play against someone in real life. So you use this program, but at that exact point, you both want to play, and it matchmakes you. So I think it will just be interesting. Hopefully, the tournament will set a wide spectrum of time for the games to be able to be played. Because I think that's probably one of the only reasons why more people don't use PTCGO. Because you either do get matched up against someone, who, while you both do want to play at the same time, you may play against someone who's not very good, or they're using a really bad deck, like a thing. So you're not actually getting constructive feedback on your own deck. But then at the same time is when you do want to play against someone that you know in a constructed environment, the time slots that the majority of people want to play, you personally can't play. I know a bunch of players that might work night shift, used to do night shifts, and it used to be really difficult to talk to anyone or practice against anyone or play games against many people because no one was awake, especially in Perth and the time difference. So that'd be the only thing which hopefully is not too much of an issue.
I think. Sorry, go on.
No, please go ahead.
So look, I guess on a more serious note as well, for some people, to follow on what you're saying, Alex, they find it very difficult to get to a league on a weekend or whenever it might be held. Maybe they live very far away, or the timing just doesn't add up, or just doesn't work out for them. And also, some people, it could even just be a monetary issue. Going to league every week may not be something that's really within their budget. So a
$20? I'll pass.
Yeah, exactly. So I mean, a $2 fortnightly league While I jokingly said it's the playtesting we always wanted, what it can do is it can be very helpful to people sort of in more remote areas who people who may not even have a league available to them, but just because the player base is big enough, but they still want to play. So it gets them still involved in the community, while at the same time, it doesn't really cost that much. I mean, while we may not have the same prize structure as a regular league might, at the same time, you still get people involved that may very well not have an opportunity otherwise, and as a result, it gives them a bit of a chance to mess around with their deck with people they know, and like you were saying, they can get pretty constructive feedback. So that way, when they go into a bigger tournament like the upcoming League Cups or the International Challenge, it does allow them that extra bit of testing time to figure out the little kinks that they might need to change.
To be fair though, if we have players that travel from one state to another by car to play in an LC, I'm pretty sure they can figure out a set time to play the PTCGO.
That is fair. I don't believe that it would be difficult to find that set time. So I think we just saw a very interesting link here by Mr. Bodhi about a tournament coming up in Dallas, a regional tournament actually, which is quite surprising that it's on this weekend.
Well,
I told you.
Yeah, we knew something was on this weekend. I had written down that it was Georgia Regionals, but of course Georgia Regionals isn't till the second weekend of the new year. But right at the end of the year, it looks like Dallas over in the US of A is going to be hosting a big regional championships. What do you guys think? Are we going to see the continued dominance of Veltal Garbodor? Let's go into this now. What do you guys think is going to be seen in Dallas?
Oh, look, I think that Evil Tall Garbodor is far and away the best deck in the format currently. It cements itself there because of its plethora of options available to all the different matchups. You've got Fright Night Evil Tall to help shut down different mega decks. You've got Evil Tall EX, Big Daddy, who's been around since the dawn of time, who just has, it only has 2 attacks, but they're both such fantastic attacks. You've got Y Cyclone for versatility and being able to maintain a positive board state against the opponent, and you've got Evil Ball to take those big KOs whenever you need to. Of course, some of the dark decks utilize Zoroark from Breakthrough, not only as a way to get around, I suppose, being stuck in the active spot if you don't have ability lock underway, but also just as a big swing with a single prize attacker if the opponent decides to get a little bit too greedy with the field. So, I personally think the deck is still going to dominate, but we may see a few more decks pop up that are trying their best to counter the popular BDIF that is Evil Tall Garbodor.
After Alex Hill's performance with the Zebstrika Vespiquen, the deck is no longer a surprise, and it was positioned to be a hard counter specifically for Yveltal Garb, as well as Greninja with the Vespiquen, which were 2 of what we considered the big 3, with the third being Volcanion, because that deck it cannot deal with Volcanion. It's going to have a negative effect now, because that deck's no longer a surprise, and I feel like it actually would make people want to play Volcanion more, because they might be expecting more hard counters to Yveltal. So if there's more Volcanion then, as a result, because they think there's counters to Yveltal, then there might be an even bigger dominance of Yveltal if there's no direct hard counters to it. Because it's a whole Schrodinger's cat sort of thing. You know there's counters, but you just don't know if the counters are going to get played or not, because then you'll just lose to one of the other big decks. And half the time, you can have like 20 Greninjas and only one of them will cut because the other 19 would just dead draw in like the win and in round, because that's what always happens to Greninja. So I think the Zebstrika thing will not be as popular as people think, because it's more likely to hit matchups it can't deal with. I think Yveltal will still be there, but I think the amount of other niche decks more so will also be interesting. I think there actually might be a bit of a resurgence of Mega Mewtwo decks, because I think Gardevoir is almost non-existent now. I know we saw a little bit of it at London, the metal variants in particular, but I just don't think that can keep up with the amount of Volcanion that's still getting played. So I think we'll see Mega Mewtwo go up. And yeah, and probably still Greninja, but it's so sick of Greninja. You watch that deck, you watch it so many times, it just dies. I don't mind losing an actual game if the opponent's like countered you or it's a bad matchup and you tried your best, but I hate losing because of dead draw. The worst feeling.
I mean, I suppose Greninja's always been that type of a risky deck where if your opponent does, it takes a while to get set up, so your opponent knows exactly what's coming. But if they have no proper way to deal with it, and you can get yourself set up, then there's nothing that really stops it. Like, it just sort of floods the field with energies, big HP Pokemon, and so it's such an efficient attacker. So like it's quite obvious where the strengths lie with Greninja. But I think that's sometimes sometimes people decide they want to take that chance that it could dead draw, because the positive of it being such an efficient, such a awkward number to hit is just so good, and the fact that you can flood your field so quickly as well has just always been a big boon for people going into tournaments.
Slow decks like that are a bit of a double-edged sword, because especially when it's a best of 3 in 50 minutes, you don't want a slow deck that has huge comeback potential to start, have a really suboptimal start in game 1, for example, game 1, for example, and then you play it through because you're like, oh, well, no, there's still a chance I can win because it's Greninja, and you can just end to 1, get all your Greninjas out. I don't know. The deck does have that comeback potential, but it doesn't always work out, and then you've just spent like 30, 35 minutes playing one game and you lost, and you're like, okay, now I'll have to quickly win game 2. Oh wait, I'm playing Greninja. I'll just sign that L on the match slip right now.
Yeah, well, I mean,
whereas that's why I think Volcanion is so popular, because it's like, okay, well, if I don't go off in the first turn, I'm probably going to lose. And then within 2 of your turns rather, you're like, okay, no, I can quickly figure out I'm going to lose. I'll skip. And you're like, how much time did I take? 10 minutes. Oh, sit. Game 2 now. Then we'll finish that, and then we'll go to game 3 if you want. Like it's really obvious decks like that.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it gives you that's another part of the whole game strategy where you have to think about exactly how much time you have, and you have to strategically. Sometimes you do have to strategically forfeit a particular game in order to pull out the best possible subsequent games. So that's where Greninja's faults lie. I mean, I guess a big boon for Greninja that may draw some people in as well is the fact that it doesn't play Shaman EX, which is a popular card in a lot of these different decks to help speed up the process of setting up.
Burn it.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. So yeah, I mean,
sorry to go off discussion topic, Bodhi.
Yeah, let's keep going, my friends. I really want to hear more about our thoughts on the meta, and we will move into some League Cup discussion later, and specifically more on the meta. If I was to round off our opinions on Dallas, however, I would say that Yveltal is still definitely the best deck, and even though Alex Hill's list is no longer a surprise, the meta is quite figured out, and it's very, very. There's lots of average decks, I would say. There's lots of decks that aren't quite the tier 1 that Yveltal, Volcanion, some would say Greninja, some would put Vespiquen up there now because of its good matchup against Yveltal and Greninja. In my mind, Yveltal's going to win, and there are lots of decks that you can play to beat Yveltal. It's just they can't beat anything else. So going into the tournament, I would have money on Yveltal EX winning the deck, winning the.
Likewise.
All right, guys, back to our hometowns now. Another piece of Ace Trainer news. There is currently a Ace Trainer competition going on where one lucky player from anywhere in the world can win one night's free accommodation in Melbourne. Fellas, have you entered our Ace Trainer competition yet?
Can't say that I have, but
Don't be biased. I thought we wouldn't be allowed.
Yeah, that's definitely played a role in my mind.
Oh, come on, fellas, you're not going to win anyway.
Oh, well, not with that attitude. Now
That
you
is
just want me to make 50 fake accounts or something so I can enter.
that is true. If there's a call Coletta coming in, I'll be very confused.
No, it's okay. People get my name wrong enough anyway, so it wouldn't really matter if I made fake accounts.
I think it's a terrific idea, though, and everyone that listens to this podcast or is just a fan of Ace Trainer should definitely enter for their chance, especially, obviously, if they're coming to the Melbourne International.
Even if you're not coming to the international, honestly, just share our Facebook page. It can do nothing but good things for all of us.
If they win, then they're not going. Can they hand the gift to someone else?
They can most certainly hand their gift to someone else. Even if they
Oh, yeah,
decide
definitely that.
even if they decide that they don't want to come, even if they decide they don't want to share their gift, maybe I'll send them some cash for their
Cookies.
troubles.
Definitely send them
Cash,
some cookies.
cookies.
Some salt.
We'll send them something.
No, that's all for you, baby.
All right, guys. Our last piece of Australian news this week is that the Melbourne League Challenge back from November is currently being uploaded to YouTube by two local Melbourne players and commentated on. Have you guys had a chance to check out any of these videos so far?
Look, I have been quite busy as of late. It's something that I'll definitely look into, but it's something I'll look into as we get closer to the League Cups because it'll be relevant information for the tournaments coming up. Just a query though, those League Cups, did they include evolutions at that time?
I believe so, yes, as the Melbourne League Challenge that
Yeah, sorry, League Challenge.
the League Challenge has a player playing Eradicate.
Okay, all right then. Yeah, so I feel like they'll be very relevant. They'll be relevant bits of information for people attending the upcoming League Cups in the next few weeks. So it's something I'll definitely look into during any testing that I'm doing, or any testing that I'll be assisting with for any one of my friends down here in New South Wales.
Alex, have you had a chance to look into these League Challenge videos yet?
Yeah, I did. I'll be lying if I watched all of them, but I did watch a couple of notable ones. Eradicate Red Dress Cup, I the one that Henry played, so I was interested in that. I think it's really good to see players, just doing their own thing, like just uploading it, and it's as much for them as everyone else. They post it in the play page. Any content like this, is only a benefit, us so we can see the decks and just everyone else. They want to. I think we were talking about this before the podcast started. I think I don't know about you guys, but I definitely underestimate how many people actually enjoy watching games get played out. I think too many times I have theory on. I'll sit there and play out the games in my head and see how turns will get played, and especially when some of the only real controlling cards that we still have in our game is stuff like N or energy removal, but energy removal is a flip, and then it's like, well, I can just top deck Sycamore from my end, so there's no real controlling factor. So you feel like it's easy to play out games in your head. And you're like, okay, what would I need if they set up this and they set up that? But some people much prefer just to actually watch the games play out in front of them, which is why some people like to test. But if you can't test, then people seems like they really enjoy actually watching the games get played out in video format. And we'll always sit there and watch really well-known players on stream play their games, but half the time that's just because, I don't know, I think as the years have gone past, so they're making it seem like you're actually kind of interested in some of the really well-known players. It's just the same as, whether you watch sport and you follow, particular athletes because you just enjoy watching them play. I think a lot of us also enjoy watching specific players play when they're on stream, particularly US ones. You get really excited and you're like, oh yeah, I want to watch this, not just because of the deck, but also the player. So I think these guys are just trying to also do the same thing, but for the Australian audience.
Yeah, really, really happy to see two local players stepping it up with some content that can be shared worldwide. Of course, very, very happy to have them as a part of our community, and we wish them nothing but the absolute best of luck. All right, guys, that's it for our news section of today. We're going to get into our main discussion of the episode, and that is going to be the League Cup starting in January here in Australia. So my first question to you guys is the Evolutions format. We've still got it. We're still going forward. We talked about it a little bit during Dallas. is there anything in this meta that has not been discovered? I know it's a strange question, but do you think that the meta is completely played out now? Have we reached the pinnacle and the antithesis of the meta here in Australia?
I mean, from what we've seen so far, there doesn't look like too much more room to expand. In saying that, I've heard rumblings. It very briefly popped up, but there was a deck involving the use of Pidgeot EX from the Evolution set, and that was I think it was in combination with cards like Jolteon EX and even occasionally Wailord EX, where they basically utilize these different methods of disruption and then send up Pidgeot EX, or they use the Ninja Boy card from Steam Siege to basically swap out whatever it was. They heal it off, they swap it out, and then they use Mirror Move, which is one colorless energy, and upload. They basically place a bunch of damage on the opponent for something that's efficient, and it sort of set the opponent back a turn. However, in saying that, I don't feel like that's a very strong choice right now, because these decks, I mean, you've got the Zeb Striker, Vesperquin, which usually try and finds a one-hit KO, and it will hit a lot of those partners that it has for weakness, or Pidgeot itself gets one-hit KO by Zeb Striker. And then, of course, you've got Greninja, which can just dump a bunch of damage in one go, Volcanion, which can do the same thing, and then Yveltal, which can control its damage output quite efficiently. So I just don't feel like Pidgeot's a very strong choice at the moment, but it is definitely an interesting choice and one that I've seen pop up here and there.
I think it's less about what decks have been discovered, because, geez, you just see all these random decks get played at LLCs. I think Australia just... it's not even a meta. It's just rock up at the league and play whatever you want. It might not be the same for the League Cup, because it's obviously more important and a much more what's the word I'm looking for?
Prestigious? Nah, not really
Yeah.
that.
But you know what I
It's a
mean, though.
higher tier event, yeah.
There's more on the
it's
line.
it's a higher tier event, yeah. Yeah, than a league challenge, so you might see maybe people not rock up with Mega Pidgeot. They might go, okay, now it's time to play Yveltal. But because I must admit, League, I'll definitely test random decks. I'll still play meta occasionally, but definitely more inclined to play something you might try out. But when it comes to the big tournaments, that's when, unless it's a rogue you've tested extensively, behind closed doors, and you know it works, you're much more inclined to play something that's a bit more battle hardened, like the big three we were talking about. I think probably no, Bodhi. I think everything has really been discovered, but then it's just a case of just pull that slot machine and see, which deck am I going to be playing today, and flip a coin, whatever. And one thing I must admit with a lot of the Australian players is you can't figure out what cards people have. I don't know if you guys do it, but over in Perth, you kind of know which cards people have anyway. So when you go to these tournaments, you're like, well, I know he's got this, and this. Try and judge for yourself what to play, because they can't play or X or Y because they don't own those cards. So you might be more inclined to play something then. It can't get countered. The one deck which I haven't seen, which lots of Australian players played last season, was Mega Ray, and I know it's obviously got very hard counters at the moment. Parallel City being one of the most. Parallel City N can just destroy the deck, but I think if a Mega Ray deck got left unchecked and kind of just ran hot and hit, Greninja or Volcanion, which I know Volcanion struggles against it, and manages to dodge Yveltal, I think that could seriously have a big impact on the tournament. Because the one thing that Mega Ray does, unlike a lot of the other rogues, is it beats the other rogues quite easily. You can just destroy them in one hit.
Yeah, I mean, the Mega Ray deck was one that was quite hyped before the season had started, just because, that and Mega Mewtwo were two of the most hyped decks going into the new season. And, it made sense.
That's the effect Nightmare had.
Yeah, exactly right. I think some people were just really stuck in that mindset of, there's got to be these big decks, and so they sort of went to Mega Rayquaza and thought, well, this deck is just, it's a big deck, you know, it's able to pull off such huge damage on the first turn. But I think the format, you know, it didn't exactly slow down, but it sort of shifted in a weird way where Mega Rayquaza still wasn't quite reliable. It was still a little bit clumsy, I suppose, to get through the deck. I mean, it lost Battle Compressor, which is kind of a big deal. I feel like in the expanded format, which we don't have, it also has some nicer utility cards such as Colress, which, you know, you can shuffle in your hand and draw as many cards as there are bench Pokemon in the field, or gets us to slow down the opponent while you're also speeding up. So I feel like it's just not as strong as it could be in the standard format, and it's always that deck where it's like it's just teetering on the brink, but it never really gets there because there's always something that ruins it.
I think
And
a big thing with the tool removal being gone as well, because before Mega Ray, you know, they could set up guard, but then the next turn they'd play Megaphone and then go off again, but they can't do that anymore.
yeah, losing tool removal definitely hindered it because it can't just like, you know, if its bench shrinks, it can't just like knock out the stadium, pull out a Hooper, and just slam it back down.
It wasn't hard with Puzzle at the time.
Yeah, exactly. Actually, another thing that I want to bring up, I feel like Evolutions entered the format at a really weird time. Like, there are a lot of cards in there that I feel like if they were around during the XY on era, they would have been far stronger. Take, for example, Hitmonchan or Starmie Break. So Hitmonchan obviously does 1 for 30, one fighting energy for 30 damage, but that's it. But we had the boosters such as Fighting Stadium, Strong Energy, Muscle Band, and of course there's always Magnetic Storm. So that way you could get around resistance. And I feel like that would have been a very nice card against the really big deck Night March at the time. And then, for example, Starmie Break, where it has that Turbo Star, or I think, what is it, Break Star or something, attack, where it's for 1/100 to all of your opponent's Break Pokemon. And with the huge Trevenant deck that was around at the time as well, you know, it would have been so much stronger against something like that. But now we've got these cards where they seem like they should be really good, but they just don't have the right meta to slot into. And as a result, we find Evolutions being a pretty mediocre set and not really changing that much, which is why we're not seeing too many different iterations. I mean, we see maybe people adding Dragonite EX here and there, or using Brock's Grit on the odd occasion, but and I guess Raticate with the Raticate Houndoom decks, or the deck that I think Henry Brand played, which was like Raticate Regice Jolteon EX or something. But shy of that, we don't really see too much innovation, and it's just because the meta has shifted. We've lost certain cards that these cards would have been fantastic against. So I feel like that's why we have the meta we have now.
One last point before we move on. Sorry, buddy. I just thought the last thing, Australia loves Vileplume, and it's one deck that hasn't gotten played a lot. I know it did top 1 LC in Brisbane, yeah?
Yes, that's correct. It did. It won
That's-
the last LC here.
I think that's the other real sleeper hit for our League Cups, is a strong Vileplume toolbox deck.
All right, guys. Let's stay on League Cups for a little bit. I wanna keep pressing you guys. This time, it's going to be about tech cards specifically. So, a tech card obviously is a card that doesn't always fit in the traditional lists of a deck. It's a card that often finds its way. It misses the cut a lot of the time. Some players put it in for very specific reasons to counter very specific cards. These cards we've seen very recently in London. We saw cards like Jirachi, the X and Y promo that discards a special energy and it can't be damaged by defending Pokemon's attacks next turn. We've seen things like Yveltal Break become popular and more popular due to London, not necessarily for any other reason other than it is a strong tech card in maybe 1 or 2 circumstances. Do you guys have you seen any tech cards popping up recently that might make a splash at a League Cup in Australia?
Not sure if I'd call it a tech, but Enhanced Hammer has really become, you know, a go-to sort of 61st card in a lot of people's decks lately. Obviously because of the huge Surgeons of Yveltal, because Yveltal's old trick of cycloning the energy off its active, usually the DC, to a bench one. So they're expecting to get knocked out, and I think an enhanced hammer play to their bench that they moved it to, and then knocking out the active is such a strong play. Particularly Volcanion is going to be wanting to seriously consider one or maybe not two. I think two is excessive because you really only need to do it one turn. Because we know how important decks like that don't have. It has Max Elixir, but it's almost just denying their last turn. Their last energy attachment just gone. Wasted their whole turn. So that's just one idea. Do you have any ideas, Paul?
So I feel like a card that we see flit in and out of decks is Max Potion. And I think in a format like this, where you're either Volcanion and you're blowing up everything, or you're Yveltal and you're managing your board, or you're Greninja where you can place damage strategically, we could potentially see Max Potion slot back into some decks. I mean, Volcanion doesn't just straight up go for one-hit KOs every single time, though it is its main goal, because you have to sometimes set up strategic KOs. You may not have access to abilities that turn due to Garbodor being active. Or you just may not have access to all the Volcanion EXs you need for a one-hit KO, and as a result, you set it up for that strategic two-hit KO. It's a card that I see players toying around with all the time, not necessarily just as a one-off, but I mean, some decks, you'll see some decks potentially play 4. Usually those are few and far between, especially since we lost that Aromatisse from X and Y, so we no longer have that Fairy Transfer type decks around, excluding, I guess, Golduck Break, but I can't say that I've seen anyone play Golduck Break since its inception. But yeah, I mean, Max Potion, definitely something to potentially keep an eye out for. It's just, especially, there's different bits of spread damage. There's different ways for damage to just rack up and not be one-hit KOs. And it's potentially something that people may be looking to include into the decks coming into the League Cups.
The last tech card. Oh, sorry, Bodhi.
Sorry,
There's one other card.
I was going to mention Karen as a card that may potentially see some play in the future. I have a couple of supporters that I was thinking about. Alex, I'll let you go first, and then I'll talk about Karen a little bit after that.
My last card was a supporter, and it was one that was played just before Worlds, and at Worlds quite a lot, and then it's almost just become non-existent since then. That's Ninja Boy. I saw a lot of Ninja Boy get played at Worlds, in specifically dark decks. I know my brother Matthew, we had built a sort of a dark hybrid deck that really abused Ninja Boy. It ran 3 copies of Ninja Boy. It was the go-to supporter in such a heavy item lock format that was the Worlds format. And we've seen less of it now, and I'm actually surprised. I thought we would see a lot of Ninja Boy in Yveltal decks because they all are basics outside the Garbodor, obviously. But I thought, I think because they Cyclone a lot, it might not be as powerful because a lot of times they're not keeping the energy on their active Yveltal unless it's a Fright Knight, and a lot of times you don't want the Fright Knight to leave the field if you're using it. So it might not be the most clutch card this format currently, but I think it's a really powerful card, and I think maybe we just haven't quite figured out a deck to really abuse it again. Maybe with the next set, Sun and Moon, there might be more of a reason to play Ninja Boy, but I remember when I first read that card, I thought it was just so good, and I just knew it was the card that needed to get just some sort of collection of basics to be able to just work with each other and interchange, and that would be the glue that would stick it all together.
Yeah,
I mean,
Ninja Boy is very interesting, isn't it, Paul? I'll let you go in a moment. I want to mention Ninja Boy.
Sure.
When this format, before Evolutions, we saw Ninja Boy quite a lot, actually, in Yveltal variants, especially with cards like Umbreon, the Fright Knight Yveltal, which is still quite common. Umbreon, however, is not very common. And in Darkrai Giratina, which again has lost quite a bit of popularity recently due to some poor matchups across the board. Yveltal EX is very good at dealing with a Giratina because it has to attach 4 energy to itself to be able to attack. The card that makes Ninja Boy very interesting, of course, is Vileplume, the ability to switch out attackers at will while your opponent is unable to play trainer cards. You can switch to the attackers you need. It often runs a high count. 3 Ninja Boy is quite common in these Vileplume style decks.
Well, actually, that's exactly what I was going to say. So, well done, Mr. Psychic Powers Booty.
Great minds.
Yeah,
minds,
great, exactly right. Great minds think alike. That's why we're all here. But yes, so I mean, Jolteon and Glaceon EX are both, I guess, the most popular partners in the Vileplume toolboxes, just because they have the ability to lock down particular decks at will, and then they can use Rainbow Energy and Double Colorless Energy with little fear of having them being removed, since since the opponent doesn't have access to Enhanced Hammer while Vileplume's Irritating Pollen is active.
I think it really abuses the fact as well that the only deck that's running Ranger these days is Volcanion, and that's just because it wants the Volcanic hit 2 turns in a row.
Absolutely. That's another. I guess that's the reason I didn't bring it up as a tech card is because Volcanion really uses it for itself, and there aren't too many other areas where Ranger is too relevant at this stage. I mean, you've got Greninja's Shadow Stitching, which it could be useful against, or Jirachi's Stardust attack, but shy of those two, I mean, there isn't too much that's really used at this stage. That's just not straight up damage.
Just ask Daniel Collins if Pokemon Ranger is popular.
Well, Giratina Hammers is definitely.
Oh no, I'm not talking about that.
Okay. All right. Well, I'll have to ask him sometime.
All right, Dan, that's a call out to you. If you wanna tell us on the podcast one time, you're more than welcome to come on. I know he's being an adult right now. He's trying to build a house.
Oh no.
But...
The whole thing was so like it because he obviously played the Jolteon Glaceon at Nats, which he can't with. Because the whole discussion we were having, he was testing it extensively before the tournament. He was like, nah, it was just the fear of Ranger would make people not want to play his deck. But then they were like, oh, but as long as the card exists, it doesn't necessarily mean people will play it, because it has as much of an effect of just scaring people than it does actually getting inserted into lists. Because it was like, does Night March actually play the Ranger? Or do they say, no, just the fact that it exists will scare the Jolteon and Glaceon decks away? So then I can just play Night March, but I don't have to actually run the Ranger.
Yeah, and I mean, Bodhi, you and Dan ended up on stream for Nationals, so that was a very interesting match. So we got to see that play out firsthand. The water box that you played, I think, Seismitoad and Glaceon EXs versus Dan's Jolteon EX and Glaceon EX concoction.
I try not to remember that. Thank you very much, Paul.
I'm so sorry, but it was a very fun game to commentate. That's why I bring it up. And then shortly after, we had you assist us with further commentary. So that's why it's.
Didn't he like donk you?
I donked him actually in game 2. Yep. I killed I believe, an Articuno or something that was active. Might have been a Trubbish.
Regice, probably.
It could have been a Regice. I donked it with a 3 energy Seismitoad Grenade Hammer in game 2.
Well, there you go. You got something fun out of that, I suppose.
I did.
Looks like it's gonna be a tie, boys.
Yeah. Let's get back to League Cups now. My final question for you on League Cups. The first one that we have potentially that has been confirmed is mine up in Brisbane. So guys, tell me, what's my play for the Brisbane League Cup on the 14th or the 21st, yet to be completely confirmed, of January 2017?
Yveltal Garbodor? I mean, it seems very obvious, but we've discussed all the strong points, and it's definitely worth playing, unless you want to try and be sneaky about it and try your hand at beating the deck.
I don't know if I'm good enough to be able to beat Yveltal Garbodor unless I'm playing Yveltal Garbodor.
Okay. Well, I mean, you could always try around that Zepstriker Vespiquen deck we've discussed previously. It's got a lot of interesting matchups, and just hope your the motley crew of Queenslanders doesn't play Volcanion exclusively.
All right, Alex. What should I play? Paul's given me a Yveltal. I thought he'd give me an interesting answer. What have you got for me?
Nah, never.
I would, knowing what that Brisbane meta was like, I would seriously consider the Vileplume deck, the Vileplume toolbox. I think if you're confident enough to be able to just, the only downside is like it might not be as consistent as the other decks in the format, but as long as it doesn't dead draw, like there's a very strong chance it can win every matchup.
You know what? I think I'm gonna have to agree with one of you. I won't say which. In a couple weeks, we'll come back to it, and you can ask me how I did at the League Cup when we break down a couple of the results from some of the events. All right, guys, that concludes our League Cup discussion. We just have one more little part of our podcast left for today, and that is our favorite blank from 2016. So we're gonna go round. First of all, favorite deck of 2016, a deck that maybe it came out this year, maybe it was popular this year. Let's start with Alex.
Oh my god, Toad Bats, I love it so much. It's the best deck. Hey, I made it cool before Jordan.
That is true, but did you win 3
Nah,
regionals with it?
no, I did not.
Oof.
Like, oh man, it's so bad. It was so great for me in like cities and then regional. But no, hey man, I love Toad. What can I say?
Paul, how
But I
about
That'll
you?
must
happen.
admit, I had there was probably like that. There was a tie between that and the Toad and Polygon. I like the Toad and Polygon because it was just so different. Like there were still Toad decks, but they operated much differently. But I'd probably still have to give it to Toad Bats.
I like the Toad and Polygon from when it happened to beat a Sceptile at one of the city championships that we had the day after the Mega Sceptile deck won the city championships. So
It's so
We
good.
could go on about that for hours, fellas. All right, Paul, what was your favorite deck of 2016?
I mean, I talked about Murant last time, and so I'll leave that off the list, even though I definitely really enjoyed
Thank
that.
God.
Oh, well, fine. No, look, the deck I actually surprisingly played a lot more than a lot of the others was Mega Manectric variants. As much as it was a bit, it could have been unkind to me at times, like at the Adelaide regionals. I can say that I've really enjoyed the versatility of the deck, the capacity to accelerate, just burst accelerate the energies to just pretty much whatever attacker I felt like was really cool. I had a lot of versatility, and my favorite iteration of it was the Manectric Ice variant that I played at Canberra Cities. So it was like using Articuno from Roaring Skies and Regice from Ancient Origins just to mess around with different attackers. Of course, Articuno is really helpful against the single prize decks. So yeah, I'd say probably Mega Manectric variants was probably my favorite kind of deck. Much as I love Trevenant, it didn't work out for me that season, and I just hated playing against it.
Man, you guys picked. Paul nearly picked an item lock deck, and Alex picked Toad. So I don't know if I can salvage this list anymore. But my favorite deck was one that came out recently with the Steam Siege expansion, and that is the Despair Ray Mega Guard of Warrior. It's the first deck that I played after coming back into the game after a little break, quote unquote. I didn't really test or play the game or was really into the game competitively for about 8 months. So coming back and being able to play Despair Ray and winning the first event of the season with Despair Ray
That's a
was really
humble
special for
brag.
me.
Yeah,
Oh, there's
just a
nothing
touch.
humble about it, man. I won the first event.
It's
uh,
just the brag part.
it is. It's just a regular brag, but no, it was a deck that I really enjoyed playing, and I think it was very strong. Has the potential to still be very strong. The meta has shifted away from it for the time being, but who knows? Maybe in the future it'll still be good. I'm holding out hope. All right, guys. Our next topic is our favorite card released in 2016. So the sets from 2016 were your favorite card that was released. We'll start with Paul this time.
I'm just trying to think what I think Breakpoint was the first set released in 2016. So I guess we're looking at Breakpoint, Fates Collide, and Steam Siege, if I'm not mistaken. Oh, I suppose Evolutions as well, huh?
Yes, correct.
All right, tough choice because there's a lot of cards there that I liked but never worked, and then there's a lot of cards there which I liked and then worked and then hated playing against. One of which being Puzzle of Time, which was just so readily abused by many different decks. The main abuser, of course, being Night March. I guess my favorite card, though, I actually think my favorite card would probably be Ninja Boy, just because of the options that it opened up to the world. Like, there's of course the dark deck that Alex mentioned before. There's even little that like the Jolteon EX, Glaceon EX, Spiral Plume, the capacity to switch back and forth between those. And then there's some really funny things like the Regirock promo with Omega Barrier, where you could potentially load up a bunch of energy on that and swap that out, only to have a huge attacker with all these energy that you couldn't remove in the first place start beating down on the opponent's deck. So I'm going to give it to Ninja Boy for this one.
All right, Alex, how about you?
Oh, I'd have to say Max Elixir.
Mate, you've
In all
tiptoed
honesty,
at
that
Max Elixir. You're really damaging the reputation of our favorites of 2016 list here.
but we're not talking about favorites. Like the card single-handedly made like sub-average decks like almost competitive. Like,
Fair.
it has a lot of comeback potential as well. Like cards like that are, it makes sort of Pokemon the ability to come back from no board and then all of a sudden, have a chance of winning the game because cards like this exist. Some may say it's bad because it rewards like overextending, but at the same time, it also can make every game close, especially when we're coming out of a format of item lock, where that truly was the case of, I went first, turn one, item lock, your turn, you lose. Yeah, and that doesn't exist as much anymore. So I think it's fairly balanced as well. Just in terms of a card that was universally just, allowed so much more potential, so many other decks, like, I'd have to say, can you ever imagine playing a format where you actually thought you'd want a grenade hammer over Quakey punching?
Yes.
Like, that's what Max Lix did.
Only in my wildest dreams. All right, guys.
What about you, Bodhi?
My turn. I am actually going to give it to Zoroark as my favorite card from the 2016 season. Well, I believe it was. Was it? Hold on a second.
November last year.
Oh,
I mean,
November.
it was
Oh,
technically
no, I was thinking Breakpoint. Okay, all right.
Nah,
Scratch
it's
that. I gotta
Breakpoint
think
just-
again. Uh-oh. Now I'm on the spot. All right.
That's all right. You'll be able to find someone. Just
You know what? I'm gonna
pick
go
your
with another
favorite type.
evolution. I'm gonna go with an evolutions card this time. Rattata, a newly
Rattata?
released card.
You
Rattata,
fuck
yeah.
off.
Oh no. All right.
Oh, I swore. Uh-oh.
First,
I just
first one.
realized.
We're only in the
Oh,
second
no.
episode. That's okay.
Oh,
Next
no.
week, folks, join myself and Bodhi as we continue the podcast.
Oh, I
Episode-
promised I'd be good as well.
Episode
No.
3 of the Ozcast featuring just Bodhi and Paul as Alex hangs outside in shame, looking in from the window.
Oh,
All
He's
right.
in the cat cages.
but you just triggered me, that's why.
Anyway,
Okay,
so
too bad. All right.
Rattata. Why not Raticate?
Let's get back on topic. All right, I really do like Rattata for its potential with Fighting Fury Belt being such a popular tool, and with Floatstone, of course, being universally popular in almost every deck in the format. I would pretty much say every deck in the format runs Floatstone. That might be a slight over-exaggeration, but at least all the good ones do.
Yeah,
And
two of the
without
top three do.
yeah, without going too deep into why I like Rattata so much, I think that because the two tools that are most popular are very powerful and are so strong and give such a powerful board presence to your opponent, being able to get rid of them is on just there at the drop of a Pokemon is really strong. All right,
Yeah,
guys,
that's fair.
we're gonna finish it off real quick now before anything else can possibly go wrong. The favorite player that we met during the year. Now, you guys had a chance to attend some pretty prestigious events this year, and we will have a chance to attend another very prestigious event in the Melbourne International in March. Who was your favorite player that you met this year from all across the world?
So I suppose that would have to be someone we've only met this year and we hadn't met in previous years. I take it.
Yes, absolutely.
Look, I think I'm not sure how many people would know the guy, but Jake Walvin from the UK, I think is probably a favorite guy that I met this year. he was really cool, down to earth, despite the fact that he was playing Seismitoad Giratina. But but look, the guy was he was an incredibly fun person to play against. Look, I was playing Volcanion at Worlds. He was playing Seismitoad Giratina. It wasn't a fun time for anyone. But he was really great. He was just down to earth. He was a pleasant person to play against. All round great guy, and I would be glad to meet the guy once again next year.
Alex, how about you?
I actually met a UK player as well. Nitish Dula. Played him Worlds. He's a really nice guy. He's really chill as well. That's why I always like playing against people that are just really chill and just playing Worlds. But then, like I have to end myself to 3 to get an Angie to win the game, and then I miss. But I drop Shaman, draw 4 more, still miss. Then I lose, but then I laugh about it. But when he gets turn 1 item locked by me, and then he's laughing about it, guys like that, they don't take it so seriously. He was a really chill guy.
It's very
Yeah,
strong.
he's probably
Yeah, it's it's a noticeable ability of a person to be able to react well in situations like that. And I think that Alex, you are somebody that does that too. And I have noticed time and time again that you are a person that laughs off these kind of hopeless situations in the Pokemon trading card game. And to find somebody like that would have been really fun for you.
yeah, definitely.
For mine, unfortunately, I did not get the great privilege of traveling to the World Championships this year, as I did in previous years. But
What a shame.
I want to give a shout out to a local person in Brisbane that I had only met in the year 2016, and that is a guy called Reese Owen. And Reese had only been playing for a few months when I joined back up, and he was someone that I befriended very early on because he was so kind and interested in the Pokemon TCG. And as we find a lot here in Australia, was just a really fantastic person as well. Someone to hang out with, to get a beer with after playing games, to befriend. And that's a really important part of the Pokemon TCG that doesn't get talked about enough, the friendships that you build here. So a shout out to Reese and a shout out to both the guys that you met from the UK this year. This is going to wrap us up for today, guys. We've nearly hit an hour. We've gone for a very long episode, so I really appreciate it if you've stuck with us this long.
I blame Paul.
I also
Hey, I like to think of things and have cool stuff to talk about.
And talk really slow and make it drag on.
And that's why
Rude.
this episode is sponsored by Paul's, the yogurt.
Not the shoe brand or whatever it is.
There's a shoe brand called Paul. No, it's sponsored by the yogurt,
Like-
Paul. Come on, they sent you like
Oh.
6 cases of the yogurt.
We weren't going to talk about that.
All right, guys.
It was a downtime.
Let's wrap this up, guys. My name is Bodhi. Thank you to my co-hosts Alexander Bray and Paul Coletta for joining me this evening. Have a wonderful New Year's. We'll see you when it's 2017 with some new fantastic Ozcast entertainment for you guys. See you guys soon.
See you
Take
at
care,
bottom
guys.
tables.